It is almost 2 a.m. and I thought no better time than now to look at what we should do with Australia's population going forward. Perfect time, really. This is a bit different to my usual content. Usually we're learning how to draw, but shaking it up a little bit today and looking at maps and giving my input as a complete novice in city design and whatever. I am literally just giving my opinion in this. This is based off very minimal science. Obviously I have enough of an interest in this sort of area to give a more interesting look into it, but I am not by any means an expert in this area at all. Yeah, definitely take this whole thing with a grain of salt. But Australia's population right now is sitting at 27 million, I think coming up on 28 million. I think in the last 12 months we've had 450,000 new migrants to the country. So Australia's population is dramatically growing at almost 500,000 a year. Yeah, we're gonna reach 30 million is gonna be 6 years away. And then, well, if we keep it the same rate, about 6 years, then probably by 2050, we could be looking at population of 40 million, 50 million, this is a large population, literally double what we have right now. Imagine Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, imagine them double the size. They're already massive cities. They would be if these continue at the rate of growth that, well, especially Melbourne, if Melbourne continues at the rate of growth it's seeing, it's going to be huge, genuinely one of the biggest cities on this planet, really, which is pretty crazy to think. For such a small feeling nation, Australia doesn't feel that populous, but our population is so densely compacted into little corners and little areas that it just leads to massive cities. In future videos we'll talk about other projects and other different designs for what we can do with this new population and stuff, but today we're mainly focusing on a new city being made, or new cities being made, as a way to ease population growth on our major cities. This isn't really backed up by any science that or any articles that I've read have really indicated that this would be something that the government would do, but I think it could definitely be a good option, considering how massive our cities are going to become. And I also want to talk in a future episode about a high-speed rail along the east coast. Of course the whole country would be awesome, but that's not viable. It's going to be an east coast, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, maybe even just locally in Sydney along the Sydney Newcastle route, and then maybe eventually extended down. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a future episode. Just let me know if you want that. But I feel like for this episode we'll look at 3 different areas that I think could be good for a new city, and I'll give some reasons why I think it would be desirable to have them in those places, and how they could be integrated into the current landscape, really. The first place where I think a city could be pretty successful, here, let me just turn on some of these so we can actually see what's going on. Okay, wait, no, they're on. Okay, cool. So I think right now you've got a lot of population density. It's been a while since I've been on Google Earth Pro. Looking at kind of where the population is growing, we have massive population growth in Melbourne, and I think the good quality Melbourne has, I mean, good in terms of keeping prices down and keeping sustainable growth. I wouldn't say that this is desirable. This isn't the type of growth you want to have, but the type of growth that Melbourne is going to continue having is urban sprawl. It has almost infinite space for the city of its size to just grow in every direction. It has all of down here, and then there's only a couple of hills really, and then the terrain gets a bit more difficult up here where you wouldn't have massive suburbs, probably not, but still down here there's heaps of plains, and yeah, it's goes on all the way down here, and then you have to the north, it's a bit hilly, but there's still lots of flat open land that can easily be used for suburbs. I don't know why I said it like that. For suburbs. And then you have more over here. This is a lot more hilly though, so we wouldn't see as much development, I wouldn't imagine. Maybe in the valley, Yarra Valley, you could see it, but and then also southeast, one of the main growing areas, as you can see, all these new houses, plenty of plains, flat plains, all the way down here, and then it only just turns to more hilly environment here, and even up here it's still plains, all the way up to Maui. All that land, I mean, almost infinite back here, and then up here a lot. Like, if it was to keep going and expand into all this, like, you could have, like, it would end up being bigger than Tokyo if it filled this whole area. So it's yeah, at that point, like, I think the city would start going upwards by then or before then. So the urban sprawl would still grow, but you'd also get more densification in here, so it'd mean less urban sprawl. And then you look at Sydney. Sydney is much more closed off, which I think is going to become an issue kind of soon. Probably not for a couple decades, but I think in most of our lifetimes we will start to see Sydney have an issue of no space, and that's going to become like a political point, a talking point, and would see, I'm assuming, growth into its satellite cities. So you'd see Newcastle take a lot of this, as it has like a lot of, well, I mean, I say a lot, it has more free land that it can grow into. And then also Wollongong has got quite a lot, and along this coast where you're still like close to Sydney, but it's just gonna try and find any little crack. And I think you might start seeing some, well, I mean, I was gonna say you might see some of the national parks get cut up, but they are very, very uneven terrain, and you wouldn't be able to have like big sprawling suburbs on here. There'd be like very separate houses, so you probably won't see it happen too much, which is a good thing, because it's lovely how green it is around Sydney. The whole thing is just surrounded in dense forest, which is nice. I think the main growth is going to be down here, and potentially Goulburn or somewhere else along here turns into a new city. It's kind of like a halfway between Canberra and Sydney. Pretty desirable spot to be in, I'd say. As we see Canberra also grow, it's projected to hit 1 million in the next 30 years, I believe. It's and it's growing very rapidly. So yeah, Canberra's gonna be quite a like large city pretty soon. I mean, it already is like a decent city, but it's gonna be like a world stage city soon, which would be interesting to see. Seeing as how like low density it is as well. I mean, as in, there's not really much of a skyline. Like, the tallest buildings are extremely short compared to pretty much everywhere else in Australia. They're like what you'd see in like outer suburbs of Melbourne and Sydney. I think one issue Canberra's going to have is also space, but the surrounding like cities, the New South Wales cities, I think will count, and so it's like has a lot of room to grow. but I think it's going to be quite interesting because there's very different policies between the two states. So it might be a lot more desirable to be in one rather than the other. So you might see the prices get really jacked up in ACT as space becomes really limited, and yeah, you lose supply. So then, and the demand might stay the same, but there's no supply, so the houses are just gonna skyrocket unless they start going upwards, which I could definitely see. But yeah, this won't be for probably not for like another 50 years before that takes hold fully. Like as a problem, I think Sydney's gonna have more of an issue sooner than Canberra, but I think they're both gonna have interesting futures. I think Melbourne's future is going to be the most stagnant, not stagnant, but like it's going to have the most growth, but it's going to be the same. It's going to have the most status quo. It's going to be the same, just a lot bigger. Because it's got room to grow, like so much room, while the other two, not so much. And then Brisbane and the whole southeast Queensland area is quite an interesting one. I think, yeah, it's going to end up being a mega, not a mega city, but just like a bunch of cities all together. Yeah, becoming quite big. I think Sunshine Coast has got heaps of room for growth, and I think that might like become the new Gold Coast. Not 100% sure on that. It might not. I think it'll keep its like small town charm, but it's gonna get a lot more population just because it has room, like lots of really good spots for growth. And you'll see that the other option, being the Gold Coast, is almost out of room. They have all this up here, but then all the way down here, they're really like getting to the boundary really with the mountains or hills back here, and they've gone all the way down as far as they can before they get to New South Wales. Like it can still grow into New South Wales, but again, it's going to be similar to Canberra, where people are going to want to be in one and not in the other one. Like there's obviously more of a bias towards living in the Queensland side at this point, but you could definitely see tweed herds like really explode in popularity once it becomes a lot cheaper compared to the Gold Coast, and I think that will still count as population towards the Gold Coast. And then there's all this. Brisbane is also kind of in an interesting spot where they're kind of pushed up with these hills and mountains. They've definitely still got a lot of growth, especially at the back. There's a lot of room, but the problem with being back here is you're getting really far away from Brisbane, like when you get to here. And yeah, you have Toowoomba right there, but Toowoomba is much smaller than Brisbane. Like all events, world-class events and sports and stuff is going to be in Brisbane. So you're going to be in an interesting spot living out here and wanting to go into the city because you're going to be going for a long drive. And as the traffic gets worse, it's going to be even longer and longer. You might see, I feel like you're more likely to have people move to Toowoomba than to here, which I think might become apparent pretty soon once we start getting into this valley and these valleys here. I think people will be making a choice really between here or Toowoomba. And I think most people will choose Toowoomba, honestly, which might see Toowoomba explode in population, which might be, I think it would be a good thing. Might lead to new like rail connections that are, like they already have a rail connection, but maybe faster rail, maybe high speed eventually, if they become big enough. But even still, I think it's only 2 hours, 2.5 hours drive to Brisbane from Toowoomba. So it's not horrible if you're just doing it like once a year for a big event. So I think you'll see a lot of people moving to Toowoomba. Sorry for the big rant at the start here. I think now we'll look at the 3 spots that I think, well, 3 areas, and then I'll give like potential spots as well. So I think number one, the like most viable and probably the best would be a second inland city in this kind of region, in this kind of southeast little corner of the country. A new major city, sort of Canberra sized, with like the intention of becoming like a major city, so like eventually being 1 million people there, but maybe after like a while, like, so it'd be like a planned city like Canberra, but it would be suited much more for just taking in population rather than serving as a capital. It would almost be like Canberra's sister city, I would say. Like they would end up being kind of like very close, and people would probably like work and commute between both of them, and would give the middle of New South Wales, Victoria more. I mean, give it a lot more jobs, a lot more opportunities, a lot more houses. It'd give people more reason to like explore this area, which is a really lovely area, and boost all these little towns around here and the mountains. Yeah, I think it would be probably the best, most logical spot for a new city. Some specific spots, I think down here, there's a couple that I liked. I think around this lake would be awesome. I'm not sure the viability of it though, just because you're looking at altitudes of 900, 1,000 plus meters high up, but you're on a flat-ish tableland with a couple of hills and access to lots of fresh water, and at the doorstep of Kosciuszko and the ski resorts. So it could have kind of a head start by launching itself as a tourism city. You already have like this town here, which you could really just like build off. Have this as like the starting point. Makes it a lot easier if you already have a town established, and then just build a new city next to it and around it and integrate it into the new city. Makes it much easier. Then you have like workers can have access to shops and stuff, and it also means that there's already amenities and stuff in place, and then you can just upgrade them rather than having to start from scratch. But yeah, this would be, I think, kind of like my vision is of a Gold Coast, but rather than beaches and sun, it's like snow and mountains, kind of like a resort style city in the mountains. I think there'll be a couple problems that I could see with maybe it being too high altitude, which can have a lot of problems with like planes, and like quality of life can be harder with the thinner air and stuff, as well as it being a lot colder. So the city's going to rely a lot more on heating, although we use a lot less for cooling in summer. I think this lake, around this lake, would be really nice. Right on the doorstep of Kosciuszko, plenty of room for expansion of a medium to, let's say like a small to medium sized city could easily fit here, and then can expand in future. And then also about 2 hours away from Canberra. So you already have a big city nearby that people can go to, which is just like, it helps a lot having stuff nearby that people want. rather than just starting a city in the middle of nowhere. I could see this city having a couple problems with a lot of people just buying holiday houses, which would jack the price up but wouldn't actually contribute to the population as much. And I feel like the population would fluctuate a lot. I think those would be the main issues. You could move it further away from the mountains to like Kumar, or kind of anywhere in this kind of region, or even up to this reservoir. Build it around here. Have like a really cool city built on a reservoir. I think would be awesome. And again, really close to Canberra and all the natural wonders in this area. I think this would be a great spot for a city, and also can tap into all of Canberra's current infrastructure and stuff. I think a city would like naturally build here pretty easily without much need for things to get people there, because a city needs like attraction. It needs something that brings people there. Like Canberra has the capital and all the museums and all like the government workers and stuff, which then ended up making a city around that. That's kind of how they made that. And then I think Sydney, Melbourne were original cities. I'm not sure if there's many other planned cities. I think maybe Gold Coast was kind of planned, as in people wanted to come here because they lived in Brisbane but wanted to live near the beach, so they moved here. Or anywhere in Australia, and they just want to live near the beach in a nice spot. And it's literally just a nice beach with like nightlife, skyscrapers, very like Miami, which I think people are attracted to. That's what its attraction is. While the other capitals' attraction is that they're big, so they have events and they have jobs and they have shops. That's what makes them attractive. Well, I feel like this new city would be attractive because it's near mountains, snow, and kind of the alpine sort of lifestyle, which I think there would be like a decent amount of people that would move here. Like they might wait until it becomes bigger and has like an actual city, but I think there would be a lot of people that would be willing to move here. And I know it's impossible to do, but having the government be able to place people where they need them would so effectively help build Australia. But you can't do that. Like people have to have the freedom to live wherever they want to live. But yeah, if you were able to just build new cities, it would actually make it so much easier and take so much strain off the major cities. The second place that I thought would be good is Northern Australia. Northern Australia is currently one of the only places in Australia that is consistently getting wetter. This has a number of things that are causing this. One of them being that Australia is moving north, so it's slowly moving into the equator region with more tropical weather, which would see pretty much the whole north get wetter slowly, as well as changes in climate and ocean patterns that are creating more wet weather in the northern regions, which is giving a lot more opportunities up here as farming and all sorts becomes much more viable. Like obviously the south is still much more desirable for farmers and stuff at the moment, but with this getting wetter in the future, it will probably slowly catch up, that by the time a city is here, it would have the same capacity as down here, hopefully. I think for the northern city, it would have to be right up the top. And this is kind of one of the harder ones because there is a lot of native land up here that you have to be careful of, as in like you'd have to ask permission for a lot of it, and there's a lot of sacred areas, so you have to really find a nice area. Also, another problem is we already have a big city up here, Darwin, which is not really. It's growing, but it's growing very slowly. So I don't think a new city is gonna really reinvigorate people's want to move up here. But maybe in 10, 20 years it becomes more inhabitable and more people are attracted to moving up here. So having the groundworks for a city up here would be a smart move, I think. I think northern Queensland could be okay, but it is dominated by the Great Dividing Range, which blocks a lot of the moisture from getting inland, where more of the plains and areas for farming and stuff would be. So I think it would have to be probably pretty high up. And then high up, there's not a lot of existing infrastructure and it's pretty hard to get to, and also very far away. I mean, it all is very far away, but further away from existing roads and stuff. I think that's probably out just for that. Then you have northern Western Australia, which has some good candidates, but is kind of an interesting one. You have towns like Broome, which have lovely, like massive, beautiful beaches and infinite space, but they're quite a lot drier and probably wouldn't get enough rain for a while to have large scale farming. They have very basic small farms, I believe. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, yeah, they do, but nothing large scale. And I think it'd be quite a while before that could take place, really. But it could definitely become a Gold Coast kind of vibe, but just much smaller. One of the main problems is it's just so isolated from anything that it's not very desirable. And I think that's the case for this whole region, really. And you kind of lose that nice beach that you get along this side once you move into these more inlets and rivers and stuff like that. As well as it being incredibly rocky and mountainous, or not mountainous, but lots of ancient hills and valleys and gorges and stuff in this whole region, which would make it pretty difficult to build a city and farm. And it's very rocky on this whole outcrop compared to down here. And then I think up here is probably your best bet, a Darwin satellite city, which already has got a couple, but potentially a new one. You could, I think you want it as like a farming city, as in it's close to a lot of farms, but maybe acts as a port. So maybe along one of these kind of peninsulas or bays, you could have a big port city with beautiful beaches and big skyscrapers, and kind of have it as like kind of Gold Coast sort of vibes, but have it focus a lot more on industry rather than tourism, and have it focus on the massive farmlands that would like be put in place in this whole region. The problem is you kind of already have Darwin as that. And having a second city here wouldn't really make too much sense. You're better off just expanding Darwin and having that as the main city, and have that as a major city, and just encourage people to move there rather than trying to start a new city up here. I think like new towns up here would make sense, but I don't think a new city would be as wise. And then I think the final area, it was really a toss-up for me between Tassie and Western Australia, southern Western Australia. But I think Tassie already is developed to a point where it wouldn't make sense to build another city. And I mean that in the sense that you already have Launceston, which is kind of the middle Tasmanian large city, which it wouldn't make sense to have anything in this area, because that's just going to end up becoming part of Launceston. Having a second city here is just irrelevant. It just wouldn't work. All of the northern coast is pretty much developed, or all the spots of value are developed, with Devonport being the main one, I think, and has a lot of room for growth already. And then this side I don't think is as viable for a major city as the other side, as well as the other side being much more closer to Melbourne, making it the spot where you'd have ferries and stuff stop. And then obviously southern Tasmania, you have Hobart, so any other city would just be an extension of Hobart, really. Like, you could still make a new city, but there's no point creating a new city when there's already a city here. Like, why would someone choose to move to a city that's just over here when they have Hobart that's already established here? And also it's really cold. So my third and final spot would be southwestern Western Australia. And yeah, it is a drying region that is very overutilized and kind of at capacity for farming. And that's only going to dwindle as the area gets drier. But it also has a lot of other industries that can develop here, and doesn't have to become as reliant on just having farming. And Perth also needs a new place, a new city. It can't just be Perth down here. It's so lonely. It needs another major city. Like, if you had another major city here, then Perth has looks a lot less lonely, and it also like would be more reason to visit and also move over here if there's two cities, because you have two unique like whole cities that would be right next to each other, rather than one big city, which I think is a lot more valuable. If you had two cities over here, two major cities, it would drastically increase tourism and people wanting to move here. Like, I know it sounds like silly, but I think people genuinely like would be like, oh, two cities are better than one. Like, now that there's a second city, like, I would actually be comfortable moving there, because then I don't feel like I'm just stuck in an island of one city. Which sounds really silly, but I think you would actually see a lot of people move here because of that. Which is why a second city, I think, would be desirable. I think region-wise, you'd want it pretty close to Perth. Like, as far away as you can without it being inconvenient to drive between the two. So you could do an inland city and try and get a river to be dammed and have like a little lake around it, but I don't like that idea as much, and it is drying out, so it'd be very inefficient. And you also want to be wary of the state forest because you're not going into those. So Perth is going to stop growing out that way and is going to start going up and down. I think down is probably the next, and up, yeah, probably both. So you want to kind of pick somewhere that's close but far. I think you either go north, up to one of these areas along here somewhere. I think this is too far away. I think it would have to be around here. And I think all of this is buildable, but it is a lot of sand dunes, so you would have to do a lot of expensive excavation and stuff to build large buildings in this area. So I think closer down, sort of this sort of region could be really good, and heaps of expansion all the way around, like for possible future growth. So I reckon up here for a northern side city, and then for a southern side city, I think you could expand Bunbury almost and have that as the major city and just develop that out. It might actually be happening naturally. I just want to look at Bunbury's population. Bunbury. Yeah, it has 82,000 and is growing at 13, almost 14%. So it's growing like decently and has a decent population, almost 100,000. It could definitely be a future major city. Or further down, could do Bustleton expansion, or along here, or even a peninsula city could be cool. Like have it around Dunsborough. Like have that expand and become like a big city. And then there's a lot of room for growth down here. But I think my favourite is probably Bunbury as a major city, because I think it already is very nice and has a lot of industry and jobs already here. And that's pretty much it for my future cities of Australia. Obviously it wasn't 100% based in fact or anything like that, and was mainly just my opinions. But hopefully you have learnt something about Australia, or have made your own decision on where Australia should be heading. I'll come back probably next week with a new video. I'm probably going to do the high-speed rail one, but let us know in the comments below what you want to see. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Danny's gay.